Welcome back to another episode of Wrist Check Podcast. The dynamic duo is back together again. Allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Perri.
And I'm Rashawn.
And this is Wrist Check Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special friend on the couch with us, a collector, but not just a collector. This guy he's whenever I see him, it's heavy.
Yes.
It's like he's been doing it for a while. He got into some of the more popular brands really early. A big supporter of independent brands. We're here with the one and only Greg Wirtz.
Woo! Thanks for having me. It's an honor, guys. It's an honor.
Happy to finally have you here on the couch, man.
Absolutely.
This has been some time in the making. We run into each other at events all the time. And, it had dawned on me. We were attending the HSNY Gala, and which was amazing. It was my first time.
Oh, that was...
I heard that this was special because it was at the Plaza.
A whole new level.
And we were in front of the bar just sharing a drink, and we were talking. And then I was like, you got to come on the show.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, why haven't we extended an invitation to you yet?
Yes.
And so I brought it up, and he was like, man, yeah, would love to. And we made it happen just a couple of weeks, and here you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you brought some pieces with you. I want to get into a little bit of that and your story. But first, such is tradition, we have to have our honorary wrist check. You've seen the show. We start with the man who never repeats a watch. Who's repeating, but he's wearing a brand new watch. He got a couple of new pieces lately.
I have.
Yes. Yeah. That smile says it all. Mr. Smith, what are you wearing on the wrist?
So I am wearing the tried and true Omega Speedmaster. Hesselite crystal, the only way to go. NASA flight qualified. This is one of my favorite watches to wear since I've acquired it. I have to say it's one of the best commercially available watches that you can buy. In terms of price point, provenance, and just like the star power. You can wear Speedy in the room and it's always respected.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I like to wear this watch like dressed up, dressed down. My wife says that this is probably one of the best looking watches on me that I own.
Bonus.
So
big bonus.
I mean, that means
that's good.
That means that, as long as I can continue to buy good looking watches, then it's okay to buy more.
No trouble in that department.
No trouble in that department.
That's right.
Yes.
No, I love that watch. I own a vintage one. We've talked about it before. Probably my favorite chronograph. It is a handsome watch. I love the bracelet. It's a 42 millimeter that doesn't really feel like a 42 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before. Something with those twisted lugs kind of hugs the wrist really nicely. Yeah. It's also a strap monster. So I'm kind of waiting to see like you get over the honeymoon bracelet phase. I'm kind of interested to see where you take it in terms of like, because it's nice on the bracelet, but you're going to want to put a strap on there at some point.
I think so. I have an idea for a really cool, maybe like tropical strap or maybe a racing strap.
Sure.
I have like this cool racing strap on my Studio Underdog with these big, like exaggerated perforated holes.
Yeah.
Love that.
So I think I might do something like that.
That would be cool. And it speaks to the nature of the origins of that watch, right? Like originally before it was a moon watch, it was a rally watch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea.
Love those.
Yeah.
Love those. And it's one of those watches, you're in deep when you get to the Speedmaster.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the beginning.
No.
Like you've been in it a while.
Yeah.
And you
50,
could still
50 some odd watches.
Yeah. So it's one of those watches that whenever you're in deep.
Yes.
You are
that's
indeed.
it. But it doesn't have to be the first one.
No.
Anybody could appreciate that watch. There's so much. That is the real provenance that any other brand would kill for.
Yeah. It's true. You think about it. No, it's a great point. And it's one of those pieces that like, no matter where you go, it has a capacity to like strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, you're in front of someone who appreciates watches, even if they're not like a collector, if they're wearing a Speedmaster, because it's an intentional choice.
Agree.
100%.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna go next. We'll save our guest of honor for last.
Don't hurt them.
I mean, I sleep with this thing now. I shower with it. This is, I can't take it off.
Yeah.
And it's the 15510 Royal Oak AP Blue Dial.
Yes.
I've had it now maybe a week.
Yeah.
I haven't worn anything else. And I don't see any reason to. I love it. I never thought that it could be a daily, but I love it daily. Again, and if you've seen the Watches and Wonders episode, I kind of talked about how this came into my life. This was a dear friend who we had in the show hooked it up for me. None of it was planned. It was all kind of just spur of the moment. And cheers to having really good and powerful friends in the industry.
Yes.
Yeah. Greg, you got something special on the wrist, something very, very special.
Very, very special.
What are you rocking with us today?
So I have my FP Journe CS chronometre souverain. Sorry for my bad French. This is from 2014. It was they just introduced the gold dial. So it's actually a complete gold watch.
Okay.
Gold case, gold movement, and a frosted gold dial, which I thought was a really interesting
That's awesome.
Execution.
Yeah. What I love about Journe is, firstly, like Journe is a brand, aesthetically, it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. They're beautiful to look at. He has very unique design language. But then also what I love about the brand is that they do all of these funky strap colors. And you can have a lot of fun with it. And just the color combination you got going around right now is kind of sick.
Yeah, it is. It's real good.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a regular strap that they produce, and thought it worked really well. Kind of playing the rose,
very, very handsome.
The rose and the green. Love this one. Yeah, you could dress it up, you could dress it down. It really just is kind of that like old school gentleman's watch.
Yes.
Classic dress. Like I like to have this idea of like a perfect watch. Like a lot of watches can be a perfect watch, but it was just like there's nothing on here I would want to change. So to me, it's like a perfect watch.
Yes. One of the things I also appreciate about Journe is his like affinity for asymmetrical design. It's not for anyone, but I think something that he's always done exceptionally well is balancing it appropriately. And so this is a watch where like it looks, from afar, it's like a normal dress watch. And then you get up on the dial and it's got a lot of different things going on. You've got the power reserve indicator. What else you got on there? You got the...
So power reserve, small seconds.
You got a small seconds.
And these are the embossed numerals. But I can go into this for quite a while. But so a really interesting thing, the power reserve. You think, what's interesting about power reserve?
Sure.
Right? So he went out of his way to put the power reserve by the crown because he thought, you want to see what you're doing when you wind.
100%.
As a manual wind, he goes, why would you want to see what you're affecting with your winding. So, but to put this in a watch that's 8.5 millimeters or so thick, he actually had to invent a whole new power reserve system.
It's crazy.
With a ball bearing, has its own patent. And just because it should be on that side.
Sure.
So now I'll just invent a whole new way to do it.
Yes.
He's really elevated watchmaking in the sense of thinking about the end user experience.
Absolutely.
And so much so, like when you look at some of his dials, especially like any of the CS dials, you'll notice that even the numbers can be different sizes, but it doesn't necessarily look like it because of how the dial is laid out.
Right. Everything's gradual and thought out.
Very gradual, incremental, thought out, creating, using the space appropriately so it doesn't feel too cluttered. And that's a true art form.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, let's talk about something every watch collector can relate to. When you're on the hunt for the piece, you slid into DMs, combed through the forums, maybe even hit up a friend of a friend, and still nothing.
And that's where Bezel comes in. It's not just another marketplace. It's where tech meets tradition. Whether you're after a Rolex sub or independent grail, Bezel has tens of thousands of authenticated listings waiting for you. And if the watch isn't listed yet, no worries. Just add the model to your wish list and Bezel hits you with real-time notifications the moment something drops.
And for those of you who don't have time to obsess over listings 24/7, Bezel's got a concierge team that can source the watch for you. They basically take all the stress out of the process so you can just enjoy the watch on your wrist.
Plus for sellers, guarantee sales in just a few days. Thanks to the auction feature, it's a win-win, whether you're buying or selling.
So if you're ready to make your next move in this watch game, hit up Bezel, and trust me, you'll wish you'd done it sooner. So when I first met you, we had seen each other at a number of events, but I think when we first really engaged one another, I think it was at a Drake's event.
Yes.
And you were hanging out with Casimir.
Yeah.
Who's a good friend of ours. Shout out. He's going to love this.
Shout out
He's
to
like,
Cass.
oh man, they shouted me on the pod.
Yeah.
I was talking to him today, and I was going to tease him and say, I'm going to make sure we give you a shout out.
Oh, for sure. No,
but
we got it.
Now we got it. All right, perfect.
You were wearing the CS blue.
Yeah.
And I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to talk to you about. You brought some watches. I kind of want to talk to you first about Journe, because you were one of the earlier adopters of this brand.
Yep.
And got on board when, we talked about, they said, people said you were nuts.
People said I was nuts.
What was it about this brand that you saw and fell in love with? And how were you able to sort of quiet out the noise?
So, it started with another podcast alum, with Ben Clymer.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
shout out to Ben.
Hodinkee had an event. I always used to joke. So back in the day, it was like, Hodinkee used to need people to show up for the events.
Yeah.
And they were like, Greg's reliable.
They've come a long way.
Yeah, exactly. Greg's, if we invite him, he'll show up. I'm like, yeah, all right. So they would always have beautiful events, and it was really great to actually see things in person. And I had known of Journe, but had never went in the boutique. It was still up on Madison Ave in New York. And Ben and Pierre, the U.S. president, hosted an event. And the first half was just in the boutique, everybody kind of cocktail, but you got to handle the watches. And it was like, that light bulb moment. So I was already in. I started collecting maybe 2008.
Okay.
I was big Omega guy, bunch of Omegas. I think I had a Reverso by then, a Blancpain, some Rolexes. So I was.
So you already made your way around several different brands.
I was in it, but this was the first thing that was like, oh man, there's a whole nother level of these things.
There always is.
And and it was just like, wow, the detail and the story behind everything, just everything he's done, and the story of how he designs them. We were talking about it before, like. He'll design the dial first and then make a movement to
it's crazy.
fit the dial. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Pierre, great salesman. He's really great. And Ben, you could tell the love for it was there, and it was just like, okay, I got to learn more about this. So started to dive in. Read every article. There was a couple of books, by just some real passionate collectors that literally just wrote a book. The famous one, The First 20 Years, it's written by this guy, Kieran. Genius, this guy. But he took so many notes, just loved the brand so much. He turned it into a book, but just based on notes. He didn't envision writing a book about it.
Wow.
But just got so down the rabbit hole with it that he wrote the book. And you can pick it up at the boutique. They have it. It's great. But just seeing that, it clicked, where it was like, I think then my next big purchase, I gotta get one of these.
Yeah.
And I was also looking at Lange a lot.
Okay.
And I love Lange.
Sure.
I don't have one yet. I keep going back and forth. There's a lot of different models. Keep going back and forth. But I literally that day, so the Lange boutique was also on Madison. It still is, but it moved. And they're about 2-3 blocks from each other. And my wife would tease me about this day every so often, because we went to the Journe boutique. And I walked to the Lange boutique.
Yeah.
And I walked back to the Journe boutique. Walked back to the Lange boutique. Wow. I was like, man, both these brands are really, really well done.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I just think the design on the Journe was just resonated with me a little more.
Sure.
Pun intended.
That was good.
There you go.
That was good.
But at the time, I was, tell people, it's like, people are like, how much do you want to spend on that?
Yeah.
Like, it's an independent. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
2014, it's not a thing. It was like, buy vintage Rolex, buy vintage Patek. Vintage was still the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if you were a serious collector,
you had to be collecting
you were
vintage,
you know? And I was like, you know what? Even if the whole thing goes up in smoke, this thing is beautiful. So I'll be happy with it.
Yeah.
So, took the plunge. So everybody says, you're nuts. And then everything went crazy.
Yeah.
Then everybody's like, you're a genius.
You're a genius.
Yep.
That validation is everything.
I was like, I'll take it.
I told you so.
I was not speculating, but I'll take it.
Yes. So I want to ask, as someone that's been very early in, the independent watch world, are there any brands that you find in that contemporary space that also spikes your interest?
Oh, absolutely. So, it's interesting. So it's kind of over time. I think it's it might, because the indie space is getting so big now.
There's a lot of companies popping up.
It's really, so it's like, I think a lot of it, and maybe down the line, it'll be more bifurcated in like the guys who are watchmakers or engineers
Okay.
versus the kind of compilers.
Sure.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much noise now. So it's like, I like the people who are kind of doing more interesting things with it. So even like Simone Brett's not a watchmaker, but he's an engineer. He knows how everything, kind of can do a lot of the watch himself.
Yes.
And is doing this, the finishing is superlative and interesting. It's not just finishing for finishing.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rexip.
Yeah.
I asked them for one in 2018 just after they were sold out.
Oh.
First time he was in the US, 2018 for Watch Time.
Yeah.
Somehow I found myself with him, a couple other people after the show. We're out, grabbing a couple drinks, and I was just like, hey, I didn't want to, I don't want to rush you at the show, but like, do you have any more of those left?
Yeah.
And it was before he really caught on.
Yes.
So I was like,
yes.
How are we looking? It was like, they just sold out. I was like, so I missed out on that one. But last year I met two young watchmakers, Alex Hazeman and Victor Monin.
Oh yeah. They won the this award.
Yes. They won the Journe Young Watchmaker.
That's right. Yeah.
Great guys. Really interesting, the design and what they're doing. They just had an article today came out for Hodinkee, kind of going into it and whatever. So they do it's like a chime hour, jump hour with their own movement, beautiful finishing. And again, like, it's great to be able to have this connection. So I talk to them once a week.
Nice.
How's it going? What's going on? What are you working on? And they'll send, hey, we just finished this part and then prototype. We just sent this and that. Wow. Like, that's great. I'm in on them, and hopefully maybe next year we'll get something. We'll get something there.
What I love about, because I've seen their watch and the one they won the award for, and I thought it was awesome.
Yes.
And I think there probably hasn't been much conversation about this, but I think one of Journe's biggest contributions to watchmaking is sort of breaking down sort of the rules, just what you can do with a watch creatively, like aesthetically.
Yeah.
Right. And with his recent success, really, because you started 10 years ago and, it's only really in the last few years where it's like really exploded, like around maybe like right before COVID.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, but it really was,
it was like during COVID.
Yeah.
And, but now you have like even these young guys, you have Simone Brett, like there, and Rekshap, Jevdet, like kind of breaking the mold in terms of their creative approach to designing watches, and then how they work, how they like cross that, with how they operate functionally, I think is really interesting. And I think this is actually a perfect segue to one of the watches that you brought. Something that I immediately think of when I think of Journe is the resonance. And my thing with, so I love dual times. I love GMTs. Yes. I like any watch that gives me the ability to track multiple time zones.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just one of the most fascinating things to me. Here's a watch. This is beautiful.
Yeah. I want to say too, I'm glad that you actually chose the best watch and didn't save it for last.
Dog. And then with this strap, this is killer.
Yeah. Engineering at its best.
So this it is engineering at its best. This is a watch that is highly technical, right?
Yeah.
There's multiple levels of appreciation that have to take place with a piece like this. I think first, you either love it or you hate it aesthetically. You look at it and you say, not for me, or you're like, I get it. Yeah. I understand you. Then you learn how it works, right? Where did this fall into play in your collecting? And what was it when you saw this? You're like, this is it.
So, he has so many kind of innovations and things that he's managed to pull off. And really, if the Journe fanboys such as myself, we'll have conversations where it's like, what's his signature watch, signature complication, whatever. And you could have great arguments for Tourbillon.
Yep.
You have a great argument for Optimum.
Yep.
Great argument for the Resonance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the CS, it's been around for 20 years.
It's a great watch.
But it was always, to me, it was such an interesting phenomenon that he managed to put it into a wristwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that it's like he goes back to some, the Breguets and the Janviers and thing, and it's like, okay, they were trying to do this with the technology at the time.
Yeah.
Let's pick it up and take it to the next level.
Mm.
So I'd always loved the Resonance. Frankly, when they were the model before, couldn't afford it at the time, at the time.
Mm.
And it was like, but it was also, it was kind of hard to wind. Crown was on top. It was interesting. It was beautiful. I love seeing them out. But I'm like, I don't know, with the crown on top, I'm like, maybe, okay, I don't know, went and got some other Journes and things, and loved the idea of it, but was like, okay, someday I'll circle back to it.
Right.
Then he came out with this, the RQ, and it was kind of a culmination of a lot of things, because it's the Remontoirs, which he did originally with the Tourbillon, so it's kind of another one of his signature things.
Yeah.
Combining that with the Resonance, with one that you can wind.
Crazy.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is like, all right, it's getting the Remontoir thing and the Resonance thing together. And it was like, okay, doing a little better. It's, I could put that together. And I was like, all right, I got to go for this. And it was literally, I got that last year. So it was 10 years with the brand.
Wow.
It's kind of the culmination.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
What I love about this watch too is it not only is aesthetically beautiful, right? When you look and you see what's under the hood with this, exposed case back, and you see, the twin balance wheels, and then if you can listen close enough, it's not a tick, it's like a rhythm. It's a tick.
Well, and that was the thing. So
Love
that's a great way of explaining it too. And if we could talk a little bit about what the Resonance is. I attended a Journe event in Miami 2 years ago. Shout out to Rocky, who was giving us a little bit of education on it. And so hopefully I don't butcher it, but from my understanding, it kind of is that. Right, it's reverberating a frequency that self-regulates.
Yep.
So it's achieving as optimum of a accuracy as it can in that watch, which is pretty freaking accurate. If I remember correctly, Rocky said that it is somewhere between. It was like -1 to 0.
Yeah.
Losing seconds a day. It was like something crazy, like unheard of. And one of the other things that he mentioned that really stuck with me, because someone asked a question, they said, I'm talking about how complicated his timepieces are. And I remember someone goes, I don't remember who asked, but someone went, how often do you need to service a Journe? And it was such a flex for him and the brand. He was like, when it breaks.
Yes.
When you break it.
Yes.
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 I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, too, when you think of Journe and just the thought process, because this is also the brand's inception is during the time of we're thinking into the turn of the century, right?
Yeah.
And we're thinking about the future. And what a wristwatch will look like in 2025, right? Or beyond. And so
he was doing this in the 90s.
Exactly. And when I think of all of the brilliant watchmakers, designers, and engineers in that time, you think of Journe, you think of Monfray, you think of, so many others that have been in that space, even Parmigiani, right?
Please.
No. It's just you think of all these brands now and how far they've come, and then you look at the design language today, and you're like, okay, I see what's going on here.
So what I'm curious about from your perspective, why is it that Journe has ascended to where he is today? To Rashawn's point, there were a number of guys back then. I even think about Daniel Roth. He was like one of the first guys over the hill. And in many respects, the guy that many guys like Journe today looked at then and were inspired by, but only maybe, 30 years later, getting some of the credit that he's getting now. Journe he's arrived and is still part of the brand and able to enjoy that. What do you think kind of separates him?
I mean, he really, I guess, accomplished a lot with technically. So it was, the first piece was the tourbillon.
Yeah.
But he didn't want that necessarily to be his first piece.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually wanted the CS to be his first piece, but knew marketing wise that he needed more of a splash.
Uh-huh.
So that, really, that I guess is kind of the heart of it. Why he's so successful. Somehow he's really good at the watchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of people who are, at that level, but it's small.
Yeah.
But there's definitely others. But the aesthetics, he's so good with the aesthetics too. And to have somebody, and also the marketing.
Yeah.
To have somebody who can be that good at all three,
it's very rare.
It's almost not fair.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you good at
it's
all
like Steph Curry.
things?
Shooting from the logo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
You're doing everything.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Doing everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, because there's so many like Parmigiani, technically masterful, but they keep
100%.
trying to find their look.
Yeah.
And they're getting there.
Yeah.
They're getting there. I really like what they're doing.
They made a lot of headway recently too. I mean, the
Yeah.
latest release for Watches and Wonders was actually pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's
Also,
what I like.
3 years ago, when we did our first live taping, you were referring to Parmigiani and you were like, yo, this is the brand that we need to look out for.
I mean, I'll take all the credit. Yeah, please, more.
Yeah.
Let them know. Let's get these consulting fees in.
When I listen to you, Greg, I think of how intentional you are, right? And if we can move on to the next piece, we even said this maybe 4 years ago. The gentleman that owns this watch definitely has some taste.
So it's funny. We did say this. There was a joke that we made around the time we first started, and we talked about Panerais. And admittedly, I don't own any. I feel like they don't really look good on my wrist because all the ones I like are a little too large for me. But one of the things I noticed about Panerai is I was like, they all really dress well.
Yes, they always look great. I mean,
it might be an Italian thing. I don't know.
Also, too, like we said it, like most guys that own Panerais are like always best dressed in really good suits.
Yeah.
we had like a bet. We were wondering if you were gonna come in with the suit because I mean your suits are always like immaculate, and like for you to own a Panerai still, because they did have a really, really, really big push in maybe 2015.
Yeah.
They were like on
They were
fire.
on fire.
They were on fire. And even at one point, like just a cultural relevance, like there were rappers that were rapping about Panerai watches back then too.
It's kind of funny when you think about it.
Exactly, right? And like,
what do you rhyme with Panerai?
Right.
We need to go and figure that out.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love the fact that, and this is what I like about you is that how well-rounded of a collector you are. You know what I'm saying? And to have the Panerai in your collection along with some of the more indie horology stuff, I think is really cool. And it shows like a really authentic and progressive appreciation for timepieces. But I know this one arrived in your collection in a very particular way. Can you tell us a little about this?
Yeah. It's one thing I love about watches. The community, the friendships, as a lawyer, I don't want to be the lawyer hanging out with other lawyers.
Yeah.
That's not me. So, I've met all these great people, all different walks of life and all different locations. So this one, the Panerai, it always makes me think of, I have a bunch of like Italian watch friends. So they came over for a big event, maybe 5-6 years ago, definitely pre-COVID. And I was like, man, these guys are really passionate about watches. Like, oh, these guys are great. So I speak a little bad Italian, but love Italy. Go once or twice a year. A lot of these guys come over to New York once or twice a year. We become really good friends. So I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, whatever. I'm over in Milan with my wife, and we're hanging out with some of the watch friends there. And my wife's like, guys, it's Greg's birthday next week. Like, what should I get him? And they go, wait a minute. He doesn't have a Panerai, does he? And I was like, no, I've always loved the design, but like, I don't know. There's so many. It's so hard to choose.
Yes. It's tough. Yeah, there's a lot of options.
There's a lot of brands like that where you're like, I love the idea of this. It's very hard to find the particular one. But they, of course, took it upon themselves. They take a lot of pride. Like a lot of these guys have crazy collections, but they'll always have a few Panerais in there. It's very much like an Italian pride thing. So they're showing me this one, they're showing me that one. And one of my good friends, Antonio, had this model. And I was like, ooh, I like it. You got the sandwich dial, you got the 8-day, you got a little Italian on the dial. Yeah. I was like, ooh, okay.
Yes.
And so, they kind of hooked it up, and it was like, okay, talk to my guy. We took everything. Okay. Boom. And now it's a great story because it was like, man, if you're going to get a Panerai, what better place than getting it in Italy?
Facts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's great. And it's one of those things, again, it's like I wear it. It's, 8-day power reserve is fantastic.
Yeah.
You wind it on the weekend and you're good. You can grab it if you're running out of the house. But it's like, I always, when I wear it, I'm always like, oh, what are those guys up to? Let me text them on WhatsApp or whatever and, see what's going on with them.
That's kind of the beautiful thing too about like collecting watches is that some of the watches have like moments in time attached to them. And it just kind of like reminds you and takes you back there. You appreciate life in a different way. I feel like when you're collecting watches, you really value relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's like so much with the watches. You look and it just reminds you of a person or a place. And it's, brings a smile to your face.
Do you know Shelby?
Love Shelby.
Yeah. And this was something that I think really resonated with me, not only in Shelby's book, but in just knowing Shelby personally. I'm sorry, we use his real name.
That's what I was. Before I went on the show,
well, we won't say.
I was like, oh, okay.
But yes, he's a great friend. But I appreciate. One thing that, many things, but there was something that he said that really resonated with me. And he was sort of talking about like the time that we exist in right now within watches and how special it is. And I think he really captured this it was captured very well in his book. And, obviously like social media is a thing. Post-COVID, like watch media has exploded. We have a podcast about watches now, right? Like it's a thing. But one of the great things is in this time period is the community. And I don't know if collectors have ever experienced anything like this prior to. I can't see how they have. I'm sure maybe in smaller ways, right? Probably auctions and things like that. But it's so crazy now, like just to be able to go to events really around the world, meetups, or just meet people. And it's like, immediately like simpatico. Like it's like, we're like BFFs just because of the watches and relationships that come out of that. It's amazing.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Miami. I went to law school at University of Miami.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Shout out,
nice.
Go Canes. But so I really, the Miami watch community is great.
It is.
Like New York's giant.
It is.
But Miami really is a nice community. So met Shelby down there.
You know Cyrus?
No.
You'll meet Cyrus.
We gotta connect you with Cyrus.
Yeah.
Cyrus is a Journe guy too.
Is it?
He got his
maybe.
He has two now. Maybe he just got his second one.
Yeah.
Oh, probably somebody. I'm thinking of somebody else. But
he lives in DC, but he's in Miami every weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I
actually think.
Well, Cyrus, you got a shout out too on this episode. He'll love that.
Yes.
No, you're to your point. You're exactly right. Like what's going on in Miami right now is actually very special.
Yeah.
And I recently, actually, speaking of Cyrus, he put me in touch with a group of guys based out of there who now have the Miami Watch Club.
Yeah.
Do you know these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they were in New York a couple of weeks ago and I got to meet up with them. But again, just kind of hearkening on that, like this is the awesome thing about our community. It's like somebody can pick up the phone and like, yo, my guy's coming to New York. You can show them around.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We met up, we had drinks and we're like trading watch stories.
It's the best.
It's awesome.
Best. Yeah. You have this built-in network.
100%.
Kind of wherever
I can check in with my people anywhere I go.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, let's be real. Buying watches can be a little stressful. You're navigating through a sea of listings, wondering if that mint condition piece is really mint, hoping you're not about to drop some serious cash on something sketchy.
Into Bezel. These guys built a platform where every watch goes through an authentication process. We're talking old school watchmakers who know their stuff, checking every detail. They even smell the papers. And no, I'm not kidding.
And here's the kicker. Bezel isn't just for seasoned collectors. Whether you're spending $1,000 or $100,000, they've got a high-touch concierge service that will guide you through the entire process. You get a real human interaction, not some chatbot giving you the runaround.
And if you're selling, their auction platform guarantees a sale in days, not months. So whether you're adding or offloading, Bezel makes sure it's smooth sailing.
So next time you're eyeing that dream piece or looking to make room for a new one, check out Bezel. They've taken the hassle out of collecting so you can just enjoy the journey.
The final piece here, which is one of my personal favorites.
I love this brand.
Moser with the blue enamel Streamliner. Grand Prix winner. So
yeah, that was a GPHG winner.
Shout out to them. We voted for this watch and it won. So
it's a very hard watch to get.
Very, very hard watch to get. But definitely one that merits that.
Yeah.
When I look at this watch and I see, the hand hammered enamel, you kind of get lost in the dial. Like you can just like the best thing to do is like your own personal like POV of like a wrist roll. Cause like the bracelet just goes and then like you turn it over and you just look at the dial and then you just stare at the watch and you're like, this is mine.
Yeah. I think I love Moser, and I'm very interested in hearing, as someone who was kind of early to Journe, as early as one could be, Moser is also a brand that I have a lot of faith in terms of not only the product, but where they're going and how they're positioning themselves for the future. What was it about this brand that got you invested in them? Are there any sort of parallels that you see with them and sort of what you saw in Journe early on?
Yeah, people forget, I think, with Moser that like how they used to be the troublemakers.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they were
I remember.
They were really the troublemakers. Like they've kind of cleaned up their image a little bit now. Yeah. But I always thought that was a real kind of smart way that they're like, hey, we're super Swiss.
Yeah.
We're super Swiss. We're so Swiss. We're going to take Swiss made off the dial because it's not Swiss enough.
Yeah.
But like they would always kind of poke at the industry a little.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, these guys,
they're disruptors.
Yeah, I like this. They're thinking about things a little differently. So it was kind of fan, of the brand for a while. And it was those, looking, kind of waiting. I'm like, okay, but what's going to be the first piece? What's going to be the first piece? So, okay, love the Streamliner. The Pioneer, like it was okay. There's a bunch of really good ones, but there's almost kind of too many good ones.
Yes,
which is a problem with a lot of brands.
Yeah,
respect to the brands, they're doing a good job.
Yes,
but when they announced this, which I think was the Dubai Watch Week in 23, I remember going like, okay, now we got that dial is really, really something special and new movement. Little smaller.
Yeah, and they reduced it to 39.
It's great. I was like, okay. I was like, I think this is going to be it. But I know they only make 10 or 12 a month.
I want to ask Greg as well, as you being a client at your stature and like what you collect and you loving watches and having like this wide breadth of price point, design, indies, mainstream, etc. A question I like to ask for true collectors is, if you could speak to, to the brands directly, what kind of message would you have for them? Because obviously Moser gets it with leading with experience. How do you feel like your experiences can be heightened or have positive impact on you to continue to buy watches from respected brands?
I think a lot of it is you build the community with it. You know, like Moser, they have their space now, you know, in Moser land. And they're like, hey, like, you know, whenever you want to come by, we'll have a drink. We'll show you whatever's new. We're like, and then, you know, they talk about having a monthly happy hour, and Journe will have a monthly happy hour, and things where it's like you go and you get to meet people who are, you know, into this from a wide breadth of things, but also you get to see the product and you're around it. And I always say, like when you tell people, especially in New York, there's such a scene, you know, where it's, and you guys talk about it, which I love too. It's like, you know, you're like, hey, we went here on Tuesday, we went here on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. You know, but you tell them like non-watch friends, you know, hey, what are you doing Thursday? Oh, I can't do it. There's a cocktail at, you know, Breguet or something. And they're like, why do they do that?
Yes.
You know why? Because it works.
It does. It does. Your biggest advocates and ambassadors are your clients.
Yes.
And if you can get a group of these people in the same room together, they sell the watches for you.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. It goes back to community. It reminds me of something a friend of ours who we had on the show said, because, you know, you really kind of have to like participate in the community to really understand it. And I remember he was saying, you know, explaining to people that he's part of a watch club. He's like, a watch club? What you watching?
Shout out to Carlos.
He said, what y'all watching?
Yes.
But that's how we sound to other people. And it's funny because, and I want to come back to the Moser, but I have to share something else. You know, so Nore is a friend of ours and big collector now. He's, you know, really enthusiastic about watches and timepieces. And I hooked him up with a friend of ours, Shane, who took him to Journe because he was like, he really wanted to get into Journe.
Shout out to Shane.
Shout out to Shane.
Shout out to Shane.
Yep. And, you know, he was looking to get he got a Centograph after, you know, the gray market. And I said, listen, you know, get this watch. You'll show them that how badly you want to be part of this. And I'll introduce you to someone who will kind of, you know, bring you in. And so I hooked him up with Shane, and Shane brings him in, and he has an amazing time. Obviously.
Yes.
Right. Shane was the perfect person to host him.
The best.
And so Nore calls me and he says to me, first he says, thank you, which I thought was great. He was like, thank you for introducing me to Shane. He was amazing. I had such a great time. And then he says, you know, you watch people. You don't understand how you sound to people who are not watch people or are trying to be watch people. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, you said I'm going to connect you with my friend and he's going to bring you through. And I'm like, is he a salesperson? Why do I have to come through with a collector? He was like, I don't understand. He's like, it doesn't make sense to me, but he's like, I trusted you. And so he's like, I went with Shane. And then he said to me, you were right. I wouldn't want to have had that experience any other way. You have to participate in the community.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to get back to the Moser for 1 second, because we're kind of talking about, you know, maybe the parallels that you've seen. And Moser is such an interesting brand to me. And I have so much faith in them. I think they're going to be huge. And part of the reason why is similar to Journe, their design language. It's uniquely them. And what I love about the Streamliner, and this piece is one of my favorites, it never occurred to me that a brand could create another integrated sports model that could look like nothing else in the marketplace.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
And they did it.
And they
Not only did they did it, it's a sexy model.
Yeah.
Streamliner is amazing.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about that, and he used a great word for it. It was like they created a platform.
Yes.
And it was like, yeah, you know what it is? Because they do such a good job design-wise, you know, dial-wise and everything too, that they can now, they have a whole host of them, but they're all so different yet the same, but it works.
Yes. It does. It
works.
It is in tow with the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. It really is. Those are platforms for those brands.
Right.
Yes. And, you know, I didn't think that anyone would ever do that again.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't work for everything. There's
It
a lot
doesn't.
of great watches that you throw a chronograph in it and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean that they
They crushed it.
Yes.
They absolutely crushed it.
For sure.
I think the brand has like really great legs on it because what also strikes me about the Melons, they're great businessmen. And so I think just strategically, like when you look at everything they've got going on, from investing in community and making time for their members. We got to hang out with them in Geneva. We did an event with them at Beau Rivage. And how many owners of watch companies can you like chum it up with and just hang out?
right.
Very
Share
few.
a drink with, laugh.
Very few.
It's very, very few. You know what I'm saying? And, on top of that, their whole business model, you know what I'm saying? Buying that company, I think it's called Precision Engineering.
Yes.
So they produce all these hairsprings, which, is incredibly
Lucrative.
profitable for them.
Yeah.
That allows them to have fun with Moser and to actually build a brand, right?
Right.
And I think for me, that's kind of like what I see in you that you appreciate about them and Journe. They're two different, completely different companies, different design language, but there is a shared spirit in that they move at the beat of their own drum.
Yes, exactly. And
Right.
there's no immediacy to, we got to deliver X number of, units this month or year end, or, let's just throw a new dial on it and we got to pump it up and,
Yeah.
So it's like they think very long term. It was always like the Journe thing for years. It was always like, he was like, I don't make any money. He was like, I just reinvest, anything you make, I just reinvest it back in. And everybody's like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I don't have a Ferrari. Or he's like, what? He's like, right.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't.
He's got a restaurant though.
He's got a restaurant.
Right? He's slowly building the empire.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
piece by piece. But he's everything he thinks, in terms of history and long term forward, but also long term back. So yeah. And Moser, I love. It's just it's very. We're gonna try this. We're gonna try that. And we're going to build on this and build on that. And it's a very steady beat. And you could tell they're trying things. Certain things work better than others. But they're not, it's not forced.
No, it's not forced at
it's
all.
a very organic,
it's super organic.
we're going to try this. And sometimes it's great. And that's what kind of the most creative stuff comes out of.
Yeah.
Not being, tied to your latest quarterly return or whatever.
Where do you want your collection to go? Sort of like, how do you, like, if you could describe your collection, how would you want it to be described?
I mean, it's indie focused.
Yeah.
But, I have some, I don't have tons and tons of stuff, but I like a lot of iconic watches.
Okay.
It was like, I have an Aquanaut, I have a Royal Oak, I have a Reverso, like those, love that stuff.
Kind of
So
like
it's
the pillars.
Yeah, that's what I feel. It's like, collecting, I try to take a long-term kind of view with it and was like, hey, like, why are these icons? And you can't obviously get everything. Wish
No.
you could, but,
You can certainly try.
The whole money thing. But like tried to build that. And then now, after kind of having the base, now I'm like focusing more towards the indies, but also even like interesting micro brands like Love Brew.
Yeah, Brew's great.
Like John's great. And
He is.
Community too. Like all the time he's like, I'm going to do a pop-up, going to have a coffee bar, get everybody together afterwards. It was like, oh, this is great.
Yes.
This is great. So yeah, I think I'm going to keep floating towards whatever's kind of interesting, probably more indie stuff, but also, there's still some more icons I got to check off the list.
What's on your short list? What's next?
So
potentially, like, what are you looking at? That's could come into play soon.
I want to get an Optimum. There's a few more Journes.
Okay,
definitely some more Journes on the runway there. Maybe that for Teef. Can't wait to see it in person.
That was great.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Optimum, I feel, is one of those like pillar watches for them. The Rattrapant.
Yes.
Watchpont's pretty cool. It's a lot of platinum though. I like that platinum one, but man, that's a lot of platinum.
Yeah, it is.
And we'll see.
Is your wife into this at all?
She is.
Okay.
She is. So she just got her first mechanical Journe.
Nice.
2 weeks ago.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Congrats to her.
She got the Automatique.
Nice.
She got an Elegant in 2015.
Okay.
Right when they came out.
Yeah, super early.
Yeah, right when they came out, it was like, they had a big party. They launched this thing, and it was only in the original, the smaller size originally. And she had some Omegas and things, but it wasn't, maybe had a Rolex then. She knew of the brands, but wasn't super into it yet. She was just like, this thing is cool.
Yeah.
This is great. And it was like, okay, cool. And, and at that time, it wasn't like, you're doing them, they're doing you a favor or anything, but it was just like, you like this watch? Cool.
Buy it.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
Like, great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she loves that thing.
That's
loves
tight.
it. Yeah.
What was it like collecting Journe early and then watching like what was transpiring?
It was this weird sense of, validation, but also, you were like, all the things I missed out on. The New York boutique had a ruby tourbillon sitting in the safe. Months. Couldn't give it away.
Wow.
It was a lot of money still. But like, and so many just old brass pieces that were 10% of what they are now.
Crazy.
Like at a certain point, and it was like, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it was still a lot of money, but now but man, it was like so much cool stuff. Where it was like,
That's always like the most interesting thing to me. I think like it's like you have some of these pieces and you're like, everyone's like, you're throwing your money away, and then your watch is like, what the fuck?
Yes.
What's going on?
Yes.
That's crazy.
It was very much like, what's going on? When everything went nuts. And to my wife's credit, I was like, look at what some of these things are worth.
Crazy.
And she never once was like, well, you should start selling things.
Yes.
It was like, we didn't even have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
She was like, I love those ones you have. Like, that's great.
Yeah, that's
awesome. I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Good. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so great to see like how things have transformed in the last few years. It's like, I think about it all the time now, and 2020 wasn't that long ago, but it's 5 years is a long time. That's half a decade.
Yeah.
And so much has changed.
Yeah.
It really has. The community has grown exponentially. Way more people collecting. These brands are growing like crazy. There's a lot of innovation happening from a technological perspective, but also from a design perspective. And it really is a special and exciting time in watches. My man, I want to say thank you for joining us.
Yes.
This has been a lot of fun. We have to have you back because I know you got some more stuff to share. And so we'll organize that. We'll kind of do like an update on the state of the collection.
Yes.
And bring you back. Maybe we'll get your wife in too, and we'll do like a couples episode. That could be fun.
There you go. Yeah, that was good. It was good when you guys did that.
Good.
Yeah.
But thank you again. You all
you.
out there know where to find us. wristcheckpod.com, superniche.com, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, The Works, maybe one day in the metaverse with my man right here.
Yes.
With the Vision Pros on. And we'll see you next week. Deuces.
Peace.